day after the stunning and controversial removal of Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro from power, European leaders stand sharply divided over the United States' bold and unilateral military intervention in the oil-rich South American nation. Prominent leaders have responded swiftly and critically to America's direct intervention, repeatedly urging strict adherence to established international rules of law and established norms of sovereignty in global affairs. On December 3, Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico publicly declared that the US attack unequivocally proves the post-World War II global world order, founded on institutions like the United Nations, is rapidly crumbling before aggressive unilateral actions. Fico sternly warned that powerful and big countries around the world are increasingly resorting to raw military force without any legitimate United Nations Security Council mandate or broader international consensus to justify their interventions. Robert Fico said, and I quote, "International law does not apply. Military force is used without a UN Security Council mandate. Everyone who is big and strong does whatever they want in promoting their own interests." Unquote. Just hours earlier on that fateful day, the United States conducted devastating precision airstrikes across oil-rich Venezuelan territory before special forces captured both Nicolas Maduro and his wife in a dramatic nighttime raid deep inside Caracas. Both high-profile detainees have since been swiftly flown across continents to New York for federal court proceedings, where they face serious federal charges of international drug trafficking, allegations that Maduro has vehemently denied throughout his tenure. Following Maduro's shocking capture and extraction, President Donald Trump triumphantly announced that the United States will directly run Venezuela's government operations and take full control to secure its vast and strategically vital oil industry resources. Fico added passionately that as the leader of a smaller sovereign country constantly menaced by great powers, he categorically rejects this brazen sort of subversion of international law that undermines weaker nations' independence and stability. Remember, Fico has consistently rejected the US invasion of Iraq back in 2003, Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, and Israel's military operations in Gaza, establishing himself as a vocal critic of major power interventions globally. As international tensions continue to heat up rapidly over this unprecedented move, the Slovak Prime Minister also openly wondered aloud how the European Union as an institution would formally react and respond to such a provocative US attack on a sovereign state. Robert Fico said, and I quote, "Either it will condemn the use of US military force in Venezuela and be consistent with its stance on the war in Ukraine, or it will remain, as usual, hypocritically self-righteous." Unquote. As global powers from Moscow to Beijing fumed angrily over America's flagrant intervention in Venezuela's internal affairs, the European Union surprisingly stopped short of issuing a full-throated condemnation of President Trump's decisive actions. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas urged all involved parties to exercise maximum restraint in their rhetoric and military posturing while calling explicitly for strict adherence to the foundational principles enshrined within the United Nations Charter. Kaja Kallas said, and I quote, "I have spoken with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and our ambassador in Caracas. The EU is closely monitoring the situation in Venezuela. The EU has repeatedly stated that Mr. Maduro lacks legitimacy and has defended a peaceful transition. Under all circumstances, the principles of international law and the UN Charter must be respected. We call for restraint." Unquote. Meanwhile, Maduro's most steadfast international allies, China, Russia, and Iran, have issued strongly worded statements collectively condemning both the airstrikes and the subsequent capture of Venezuela's longtime leader as acts of imperialist aggression. Slamming these military actions as outrageous violations of sovereignty, Russia has formally called on Washington to immediately release the detained Venezuelan president and withdraw all US forces from Venezuelan territory without preconditions. In Spain, while some members of the large Venezuelan exile community took to the streets in joyous celebration of Maduro's downfall, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez pointedly refused to recognize or endorse the legitimacy of America's direct intervention. Sanchez also earnestly called on all international parties involved in the crisis to think of the suffering civilian population caught in the crossfire and to universally respect the binding obligations of the United Nations Charter moving forward.